So today's topic, you want to introduce the show and the topic?
So I'm Fayina Cohen and my co-host Melisa Desperak. And it's way too serious. Yes,
See?
our topic. And this is a serious topic. Let me just get there.
The topic is drumroll.
Ceremony and ritual and sacred sites. So both Melissa and I in the last several weeks had opportunity to participate in sacred ceremonies and rituals. And we wanted to share how that's impacted us and what we see in those experiences, and to encourage others to either create their own rituals or ceremonies or participate in some that are happening. They're happening all over. There's a lot more of a call for ceremony and ritual. It's almost something that's very deeply ingrained in the psyche, a desire to participate in something as a group or as an individual that invokes the higher, invokes our divinity, or connects us to the earth in some way. And I personally am often called to create that experience for others in my retreats and even on my own birthday, seeing people connect through ritual in a very sacred way. It's just very heart-opening, expanding, and really emotional, really, really emotional. So I wanted to first really ask you, Melissa, because you did something really special in Puerto Rico, to share your experience. I'd love to hear more about it, and then I'll share about mine.
So the first time I came to this idea of ceremony was after seeing Chief Overlooking Horse in at the Open Center. He was doing a lecture. And up until the point that I met him, I always felt that there was a need to, I knew that human consciousnm and the way that humanity, the path of humanity up until the point that I met him, that we were, I felt that there was a danger of like self-destruction. And so I was like this like henny penny looking for family and friends to unite as tribe, create community, build greenhouses, and create a place of safety. And then I had to walk away from that idea because it was really, I was a little too early in terms of trying to bring people together in that way. So Chief Orville came to talk about that specifically, earth changes and, the direction of that humanity was going to, in the sense of its relationship to the earth. And one of the things that I got from that lecture was that we had a responsibility, each one of us as an individual, to not only connect to the earth and respect the resources in earth, but to do what we can to bring awareness to others. And what he suggested was for people to unite in sacred sites on the summer solstice and do the ceremony called World Peace and Prayer Day. So when I left the lecture, I kept getting this voice that said, do the ceremony, and got to a point where 2 weeks later, I was like, I'm going to do the ceremony because something was kept insisting that I do this. And that was the first time I did ceremony. I did it in Puerto Rico, in a place called Charco Azul, which it means blue pond. And it's this beautiful sacred site. And I had the most amazing experience in that ceremony. I felt that I became sort of the link between heaven and earth, and I entered a different dimension in terms of feeling this sense of harmony and being in higher realms, really. And it lasted a long time. And since that ceremony, I've had many gifts when I attend ceremony. So the first thing I like to say about ceremony, the way I see it, is that as human beings, we're the link between sky and earth. And when we are in when we're in harmony and we center ourselves, we create a vortex where we can align all dimensions, and we create a oneness with everything. And when you create an intent, when you actually are set a date and you set an intent, it's extremely, extremely powerful. So if you're doing a woman's ceremony, for instance, and you're trying to bring in healing, or you're trying to send whatever the intent is, it's very powerful in manifesting exactly that. And of course, I've always mentioned that ceremony is something that we can do. It doesn't have to be as a group. Very powerful as a group, but it can also be done as an individual. You can hold ceremony within your own sacred space in meditation. And that sort of launched me into ceremony. I've had many experiences. And more recently, like you were saying, I attended a spring equinox ceremony in Puerto Rico, and it was quite beautiful. And so, Fayina, I know that you attended a retreat, or you held, actually, it was your retreat, and you had a ceremony as well. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was about?
Yes, I co-facilitated with a yoga therapist, Linda Fuller, a mindfulness retreat in Connecticut, and it was all women. There was 12 of us. And I just had this idea that in order to create like this more of a unity for the group, that we can participate in some sort of ritual. And luckily this place had a beautiful labyrinth in the middle of the woods. Linda and I went out to the woods to see it first, to see the layout. And as the two of us walked to explore, we saw and felt kind of like the presence of a place that, to me, it felt like a sacred site. And a sacred site is where many others have prayed, many others have conducted ceremony, many people have left their intentions and desires, because there was an altar in the middle of the labyrinth, and people placing stones and flowers. It felt like this perfect, like you said, vortex that still exists, even though there weren't people present, that was there available for whoever was to come next, individually or as a group. So we decided to, bring the group in. And I just remember how, when I was reading a little bit about the labyrinth, that the labyrinth as a structure, as a symbol, exists in so many parts of the world and in so many cultures. There's something about this idea of walking in a spiral that talks about as within is without, or as without is within, because we're walking in a spiral towards the center of ourselves, the center of creation. So we're kind of walking from life into our inner space, our inner divinity, in order to connect. And then as we walk out, usually people walk out having received either a message or a connection or some sort of, they had that experience in the vortex. And then as they walk out, they're bringing back into life something sacred that they've gotten there. So that was exactly the intention we had for the ritual. And walking, in line, in silence, in a very mindful way, being very present to the nature around us, even though the trees were still bare. There's such beauty, and it was sunny, it was beautiful and warm. And we walked, and we had everyone just listen to the footsteps and listen to the sounds and smell the air and really anchor in presence first. And I think that's really important for any ritual, is to invoke the sacredness through our own sacredness, the presence of our inner world, the presence of our soul. And it was so palpable as each woman was connecting to that part of herself. And then as part of tribe, there was 12 of us, like this really magical number. Even just the walk towards the labyrinth itself already brought something really magical. We had asked the women to think of something that they really wanted for themselves, because we had an exercise prior to that about self-love. And as women are constant givers and caretakers, we often forget to ask for ourselves. So it was an intention to, connect to the higher, to nature, and to the power of this labyrinth, and seek an open space to receive a blessing, a healing, transformation. And it was really it was very powerful, walking through the different layers of ourselves, you know, like almost like peeling away our identities and feeling the movement of energy in the circular, you know, the
You
spiraling.
know, the spiral reminds me of like the Big Bang, like the moment is like the moment we were released from source. So going back into the center of the spiral is like returning to source, the part of us that's connected to that oneness, the absolute.
And it was really verifiable that the energy became more powerful or stronger as we came closer to the center. So it's like starts like this and then it goes this way and it kind of speeds up. And we just stood, you know, holding hands. There's nothing in, there's something about certain even gestures, like holding hands in a circle. That could be done in any tribe, in any culture, in any experience, and it's powerful. We're connecting our hands and passing the energy through our hands, through love, through our heart centers. So even though we're asking individually, we're supporting each other in that prayer with our eyes closed. Very simple, very simple, very connected, and yet powerful, because I believe that on a subconscious level, we have all experienced this before. That's why we can just plug in. This is not a new experience. Our ancestors have done it, you know, and anything that I feel is a ritual has the power of a collective experience. So you're an individual, yet you're part of the greater whole. And that's what we really seek as human beings, is to belong. And I know that when we could do this alone as well, the reason we're doing alone, a ritual alone, is that we know that rituals are part of us being humans. You know, that's what we do to connect to divinity. We haven't created something that's different than anything that maybe our parents have done, our grandparents. You know, I want to just mention the fact that we're just before Passover and Easter. And this idea of how many generations are doing this ritual, and how excited we all are. We're, as a collective, we are participating in a very sacred ritual, even if for some people it has more meaning than for others. Some are just going through the motions, and others are really focusing and paying attention to every detail. But there's something about going through the process that, no matter how connected you are to the holiday itself, is rewarding and powerful to participate in, you know, whether alone or in a group.
Yeah, I feel that you know, there's an ancestry, right? There's a link to our ancestors, to our history, and when you really think about it, and there really is no such thing as time, when you're connecting to this moment like Passover or Easter, you are actually, is kind of like you're doing a reenactment,
Mm-hmm.
a reenactment of a moment in time that has an incredible charge of energy, and is very, very powerful when you do that. That you can bring in that energy into your home, and the sacredness of that, of the experience of what they experience in that moment when these things actually happened. So that's the thing that's beautiful about ceremony, is that in that moment you're collapsing time, you're connecting sky and earth, you're connected to the oneness, to the absolute, and you're connected to all your ancestry, all the guidance that you have, everything that wants to come in to assist you in the intent that you've set for that for that ritual, for that ceremony. And it's a way of manifesting. It really is. We can do it as individuals, and we can do it as a tribe, and very, very powerful as a tribe, as a collective. So
I'm wondering
I
if,
like to
do you have
go ahead.
something you want to add? Is something you want to share? Because I just had this idea of, if we can maybe offer an idea of the type of a ceremony or ritual that an individual can do, because we don't always have opportunity to join a group. But something that sometimes creating a new significance is doing a ritual that's unique to ourselves, you know, and creating that as part of our weekly or monthly routine. I just thought maybe you'd have some ideas.
Well, I think that if you meditation is an opportunity to clear the chatter, to connect to our inner world and to connect to our divine part. So what you're doing in that moment when you're actually connecting to that oneness is you're connected to our hierarchy. And most importantly, you're connected to your own divine part, which has a tremendous amount of wisdom. And so meditation is a ritual. And the way you could make it more, because what happens is we get triggered by different things. So lighting a candle, lighting incense, playing certain kind of music, the body starts to immediately go into that state. So when you're doing ritual or ceremony as a meditation, for instance, it's nice to start to create some kind of external sensory experience that allows you to, when you start to do it enough times, the body immediately goes into, starts to hook into that right away. So even adding 3 deep breaths, for instance, to every single meditation is like by the time you're done with the 3rd breath, you're already in. And this is obviously after practice. But one of the ceremonies that I did that was very special, I live in a studio apartment, but I wanted to open my space to my guidance and create, in a sense, an altar within my own home. And I did something on the floor, like I put sort of like a rug or a blanket, and I marked the 4 directions, and I had the 4 elements, and I lit candles, and I burned, cleared the space, and it was quite beautiful. And the intent was to welcome and anchor in my space the divine energy so that I could do the work that I do. And the beautiful thing about ceremony, it's anything you make it. It's all the intent and the space that you have. Like when you said you have to come into that space of harmony and silence, and then state your intent. And it's all about, that's how we manifest. We're very powerful in that way when we realize that ceremony is almost anything you want to make it.
Thank you for that. For me, it's sometimes just lighting a candle as a reminder of divinity in the room, like invoking my higher connection, invoking the angels, invoking our loved ones, and just reminding myself I'm not alone in the room. Sometimes that's enough. Like in Judaism, when we light candles on Friday night, bringing in the feminine aspect of God, it's a really powerful ritual. Probably the one I connect to the most, but I'm just doing it, I'm doing it whenever it feels like I need that connection. I'll light the candle in my office, in my space. And
I love
at the retreat, what we did with candle lighting, we did like a candle lighting ceremony where each person who's a participant had the candle lit for their soul, that they're present in this sacred circle or this, tribe. And they did create an intention for the whole weekend for themselves by lighting the candle. And that became really powerful because at the end of the weekend, most of them got exactly what they wanted. So it was immediately manifest. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. And if not immediately at the weekend, then the week following the retreat.
Right. That's very powerful. Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the other kind of ceremonies I've attended where I've had incredible experiences. I want to share a little bit about the moon dances. Moon dances are primarily held by there are men in the moon dances. They're called fire keepers, and they support the women, but usually the dance is done by women only.
Mm-hmm.
And they're done at night. And prior to every entering the space to do the dance, there's a sweat lodge before and after. And I had some of the most amazing experiences, visions, and really meeting my highest part, to my I don't know what my higher self, my divine part. I don't know if there's any other words that you can describe, but it's an amazing, life changing for me. The ceremonies have been, always offer something quite beautiful.
Yeah. I can relate to the sweat lodge experience, something that I've done several times in the past with a Native American. I guess he's a ceremony keeper. I don't know what his role was, but he would, he would hold ceremony in a sweat lodge. And I felt there a deep connection to the earth and being in the womb. And as you're sweating, you're kind of purging and letting out anything that, it's like a purification process, but at the same time, you start to really connect to your true self. And I had this incredible experience, even though there's a little bit of hardship sitting in so much heat and you're sweating. And we also sat very huddled together, just really close. And the physical body goes into discomfort. You're also in the dark, complete darkness. So a lot of things can come up. But as all of that was happening and I was purging, and I was feeling like the earth was supporting me with its coolness, and it was wet, a little bit wet. And there was prayers and meditation happening inside Sweat Lodge. There was a moment at which I could recognize that true essence self that was present in the room, that everything else that was happening was like outside of me. And then all I heard was like, you're strong and you could do this. It was like the first time that I felt my own strength and my own ability to go through a physical friction, that I wasn't experiencing, feeling faint and feeling like, whoa, this is too much for me to handle. And then there was this knowing, you can handle this and I got you. Like another part of me has my body. That higher consciousness is holding me. And it was incredible. Then I started to have visions in the dark space, visions. And it was because it's a Native American culture, I did see animals come up as visions on the dark space of the Sweat Lodge. Such a beautiful primal connection to that culture. I feel like every culture has beautiful ceremonies that we can connect to, and they each have a gift. So if anybody has an opportunity to witness a culture that might be different than their own, to participate in a ceremony that might be completely different than what they're used to, surprising and magical things can occur. So I was really grateful. That's what I did it many times after that. But that first experience was eye-opening and life-altering for me too.
I have to say I had a very, very similar experience. In the moon dances, I think there's 2 sweat lodges a day. So by the 5th sweat lodge, I was having a lot of friction because it was very difficult to breathe inside. And like you said, the physical discomfort, there was a moment of total panic on that 5th one. Total panic. Like I thought I'm running for the door, right? Because I couldn't breathe. Yeah. And I split. I literally split. I could feel there was a part of me it was kind of like the volume was turned down, that was in total panic. And there was another part that took over that was like totally indifferent. And took over in other words, was guiding me through that experience. And that was what I meant by meeting my divine part, because there was a wisdom, there was so much scale, and there was this, it was extremely powerful experience. And it sounds very similar to what you're saying. Yeah. And then now it's interesting because then once you have that experience, you have it starts to happen more often, like sporadically it started to happen for one reason or another. And it's been 11 years since that first experience. And I have to say that now I know how to call on her. In other words, if I go into silence, I know when she's present. And so it's a gift to really get to know that part, being able to invoke it. Is that bad to say?
Why is it bad?
I don't know. Does that sound like out there? I'm just listening to myself and saying, well, I'm saying this. No, I don't know what I should say.
I don't know. What's out there? What's out there? What's in there?
You're out there.
You're out there. Is it woo-woo?
I'm out there.
I mean, everyone has to have their own verification and experience, right? You're describing yours.
Yeah.
I felt that after that ceremony, the sweat lodge, when I came out and I just like lay down on the earth because I could finally breathe and cool off, I was like, I'm really badass. I can do this, you know? It was hard.
I felt the same. I felt the same way. And I had 3 more sweat lodges to go. I wasn't afraid. I think about that.
Yeah.
Like that one experience allowed me to do the others, feeling that energy, because I needed that energy in order to do the last 3.
And you need to be sometimes challenged to go to the limits of your own fear in the physical body, because I also felt panic and I couldn't breathe. And I think that's the intention of the ceremony, is to kind of transcend the ego that's afraid to lose control or not be here, you know, I'm gonna die, you know, all those.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna die. Like, I'm dying.
And the
I was eyeing the door. I'm gonna crawl on top of all these women because we were like this, right?
Yeah.
And get to the door.
I had thoughts of leaving too. And then when I walked out, I realized that I was holding this, that we were all holding each other too, energetically. Everyone had the same thoughts. And I was like, when is it over? Because, you know, they opened the door 3 or 4 times to get some air in.
To get some air in, you're like, it's
like,
interesting. And now I want to do a sweat lodge. Like, to me, I haven't done it in a long time. And no, I wouldn't host one because I feel like it needs to be done in a very sacred way.
Well, they're
but I want to attend one.
Do it.
Yeah, I want to attend one. So
let's put
it's been a long time.
We're gonna find one.
You know, Fayina, you're doing this a lot. Like you're still in the vortex, you're still in the spiral.
It's like, this is my go-to now. That's it. Once you discover the Kundalini swirl, the Sufi grind, or whatever they call it, it just feels like I'm connected to the energy in my body, and
it's almost like you're connected to the energy of the earth.
Yeah,
you know, like you're that vortex between earth and sky. I don't know. Just it's very interesting. I'm watching you. I don't even know if you're even aware that you've been doing that. Are you aware of it?
No, I'm aware now. Now that you pointed it out, that puts me into the cookie.
Before I was gonna go like this. Okay.
Cookie category.
I have to do it this way. Wait, this way.
You know what's interesting? That if people discover this for themselves, like everyone can feel the energy, but we all do it in a different direction. Because I can't do it in the other direction. Counterclockwise is mine. Counterclockwise. If I try to do it the other way, it feels off. Doesn't feel right. I'm this way. This way is like
you can't go counterclockwise.
No, I can.
Oh, you can.
The other way doesn't feel natural. The counterclockwise to me feels like my energy spins this way. That's the way it feels natural. And I feel like I'm not even doing it. I'm sitting on a power source and spinning like a ball. It's funny. Thank God that yogi.
You're davening. Now you're davening.
Davening. Well, you know what? Movement is ritualistic. It opens something up. When I do the swirl and I can close my eyes, it's another form of meditation, the Sufi grind.
Yeah.
And the movement, the prayers, right? There's something about this.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of ways that people connect. You could do the child pose and pray.
Well, you know, the moon dance, it's all free. It's like it's drumming, and you're just dancing to the drumming, and it's really quite freeing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, you know, touching the earth.
You know how the dervishes do it, where they're like going like this. They spin. And they're just like the dervish dances. They're also moving the energy around. Again, it's all about connection to the higher. Different rituals and movement.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we covered it all.
I think we did. So, okay. just a shout out to any of the men and women who like to participate in ceremony, whether it be a moon dance. The moon dances are done, or I don't know. It could even be ceremony that we can create ceremony for them.
Yes.
The moon dances are held by tribes all over United States, all over the world. And if women are interested in participating, to just contact us and let us know, and we can connect them to grandmothers that hold these ceremonies.
And we're also available to hold ceremonies for any
Yes.
occasion, especially you, Melissa.
Yes. No, my love, not especially me.
Why not? You did
Especially
it for my
you.
birthday. Me too.
My love, you're a beautiful soul. You know, you got this too. We all do.
Yeah, but we both love the ceremony. I think that there's room and space for that, to create something special for people if they want to honor something in particular. Buying a home, moving into a new place, honoring a relationship,
Yeah.
or healing. There's so many ways to bring a ritual in and support people.
Going to a sacred site. And I just want to say really quick, when I was in Puerto Rico, a friend of mine and I went to a sacred site, and we did a ceremony, just the two of us, at the top of the highest peak in the island. And we had such an amazing experience. What we came away with, and what we've noticed, was that our whole programming, our CPU, the computer, was completely wiped clean. We came away with not being at zero. It was an amazing, amazing experience. So ceremony at sacred sites is very powerful. Very, very powerful.
Yeah.